was a terrible joke.
Hello, everybody. Hey, round two. I got to tell you something. This lady is an amazing, amazing comedian. She was on
Thank you.
TV. She was on radio. I think she may do some plumbing work on the side. Apple Brown Betty is here. Apple Brown Betty, it is so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. Thanks so much for having me.
You know, we're lying right away. We're lying to people because we've now met a couple of
They
times.
ain't have to know that. That's you telling all the tea.
I
You
know,
ain't, they ain't have to
I
know that.
know. I'm an idiot. You know I'm an idiot. If you don't know, well, now you know I'm an idiot. You're in Richmond, Virginia.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Were you born and raised in Richmond, Virginia?
So fun fact, I was raised in Richmond, Virginia, but
Okay.
I was actually born in New York City. I don't make no
That's what I meant to ask. You were born in New York and you ended up in Richmond.
but my mama's from Emporia, Virginia, which is a very tiny
I
town
know.
of about 4,000 people, which is about an hour south of Richmond. And my dad is from North Carolina. They actually
Okay.
knew each other as kids and both moved to New York and got married and had kids, but they moved back down south to raise us.
I've been to every part of Virginia. In Richmond, I stayed at the Jefferson,
Okay, cool.
that
Yes, it's
hotel.
haunted.
And we talked about Patrice DeVos from Richmond.
Yes, that's a very
I mean,
close friend of mine.
I love it in Richmond. I had a friend live down there. I had a lot of great times.
Yeah, I love Richmond. It's home.
Okay, now last night, because I screwed up last night, the first question was supposed to be, how did you get the name Apple Brown Betty?
Well, Apple Brown Betty is a stage name. I always knew that I would want to have a stage name, and I
Okay,
had it since before I started doing comedy. I used to have a podcast called The
okay.
Drunk Auntie Show, and I knew I wanted a stage name because RuPaul always says if you ever go into show business, make sure you have a stage name. That way, when you go to the gynecologist, the girls at the front desk not all in your business, right? And it actually came to me because on stage, I typically do like the 50s vintage look. I like my gloves and my fascinators and my A-line silhouettes. And
Okay.
Apple Brown Betty was a dessert that was popular in the 40s and
I
50s.
was going to ask you because I said to my neighbor about Apple Brown Betty. She said, never heard of it. I said, that's a dessert.
It's a dessert, and
Yeah.
it's also an homage to my Islamic background. I
Okay.
got married very young. I married a Muslim, and Malcolm X's nickname for his wife Betty Shabazz was Apple Brown Betty.
Wow.
Yes,
Hey, we're getting a history lesson as well as everything else. No,
yes.
thank you for that. That was pretty cool. But no, I thought it was
They,
interesting that my neighbor didn't even know it was dessert. And I think
People call it like apple crisp. It's the same
yeah,
thing. Apple
apple
crisp,
crisp,
apple
apple
crumble.
crisp.
Yeah. Hmm.
Now, because there's a lot, because I have TV hosts, you were in radio, you just mentioned your podcast, and you're doing comedy. Can you give me the order? Which came first, and how did it come about?
Okay, so ever since childhood, I was the kid who always like hosted all the school events and
Okay,
awards and things like that. So I've always been on
the
stage, been
MC.
comfortable on stage, the
Right.
MC of everything. I'm talking like starting in elementary school. I did that. When I was in probably sixth or seventh grade, I ended up in middle school with the first person I made friends with when I moved to Richmond at like in kindergarten. We
Okay.
kind of reconnected in seventh grade. Her name is Noelle. She's awesome, dear friend of mine. And
Okay.
her dad had a show on public access. His name is Alan Shinsius. Wonderful, wonderful man.
Okay.
And Alan had a show called If I Had a Hammer, where he talked about like social, political,
Yeah.
economic
Okay. I
issues.
get it.
And he gave us a segment on his show called Kids Corner. So we would get up there, we would pound our fists about things like the school lunch menu. And so I started doing that in seventh grade, but I kept with it. I kept doing that up until I was probably like 22 years old. I'd had kids and had a family, so like my priorities shifted. But I did host a public access TV show for that long.
Okay. And then radio, how did radio get in there too?
So my podcast was on Legacy Internet Radio. Shout out Marcus Johnson and Legacy Internet Radio, and that's where I did the Drunk Auntie show for a couple years there. And that's
Okay.
actually how I transitioned into comedy. There's a comedian from Petersburg, Petersburg, just close to Richmond, and
Sure.
his name is Mike J. And we were on the same station. And he's like, "You're so funny. You got to try stand up. You're so funny." And I was like, "No, that's not really for me, you know." And then
Okay.
one day he called me and said, "Hey, I got $50 for 10 minutes." And at the time, I didn't have a job. My business had gone under with COVID, and I had gotten
Right.
sick, and that's a whole nother story. And I needed that $50, so I went and I did the show, and that's how I started doing comedy, actually.
Okay, that tells me the catalyst. Well, you mentioned that, and you know, I jump ahead here, and I think Super Sister Survival Guide. Is that about you getting
You saw
sick?
that?
No, well, I mean,
Um,
you on your website. We don't have to talk about it. I mean,
no,
because
we can't. I just forgot it was there. I
there's
forgot it was
Betty
there, and
TV. There's a lot of stuff on there.
I so appreciate you taking the time to
No,
look at
and I
all
got
that
to tell you
because
something else. I'll go with one here. But I'm not done with surprises. I got surprises for you.
okay,
I watched you rapping.
I do that
You're
too.
a hell of a rapper.
Thank you.
I don't know if you saw, like, we're just meeting. I worked
Hmm.
in the music business my whole life.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
I have pictures. I worked with Whitney Houston, Tony Braxton, Deborah
Hmm.
Cox. I worked with
Okay.
Wu Tang Clan. I worked with Tribe Called Quest, all kinds of, everything. And you can
Hmm.
rap really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've always done music. It's kind of my pet project now. Um, I'm a little bit of an extremist, so whatever I'm doing at the time, that's what I kind of like tunnel vision
Yeah,
on. So I haven't like
you're in
really
that
rapped
lane.
in a while. Yeah,
Right.
but lately that's confirmation because lately I've been kind of
I'm
the
not
very
blowing hot air up your ass. I'm telling you honest to God, Apple Brown Betty. Can I call you ABB, whatever
ABB
you
is
want,
fine.
Apple Brown Betty? I'm telling you the truth. That rapping is as good as, and a lot of rappers out there, anybody.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I
No,
really
really.
do. More than you know.
But so let's get, because again, you're such a diverse woman. When you started doing comedy, were there comedians that inspired you when you were younger, and comedians that you like now that maybe inspired you?
Um, I appreciate that question. So I was born in 81, right? And
Okay,
my dad was, I'm sorry,
I
go ahead.
graduated high school in 1980.
Okay, so yes,
I'm a
close,
relic.
right?
I fell off my
Um,
dinosaur on this one.
well, I don't believe in dinosaurs, but we'll come back to that. So, I was born in 81, and my dad was kind of strict in some ways, but he was real, progressive in a lot of other ways.
Okay,
But we weren't allowed to watch a lot of TV and, couldn't eat sugar, that kind of
right,
thing. But the one thing we could always do was watch stand-up comedy, like as inappropriate as it might be. So as a
right.
child, I saw Eddie Murphy. I saw, comedy to me that time was that dark black turtleneck HBO. It was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Billy, Billy Crystal, Gary Shandling, that
Okay.
kind of thing. But and this is gonna be so cliche for a black female comedian, but that Whoopi Goldberg
Yeah.
special. Um, and I think most people talk about identifying her with the towel on her head and everything, but for me, it was so much deeper than that because she looked like me, not just black, but
No.
she was dark skinned, her
Yeah.
cheekbones. And as a child, people would call me Whoopi Goldberg like as an insult. People
Okay,
would
sure.
call me silly as an insult,
All
calling
right.
me ugly, right? So I've really had this full circle moment as a comedian. Um, there's a picture on my Instagram that I took at the comedy store of me beside the Whoopi Goldberg picture. Like that was just
Yeah.
everything to me. So I've always aspired um, to be that for somebody, and the way she tells a story and draws you in, and she's
Yeah.
um just so dynamic, such a dynamic performer. Because I didn't just love Whoopi on stage, I loved Jumpin' Jack Flash, and
Her persona. Yeah,
that's
everything about it.
yes,
Right. Yeah,
yes,
I
yes,
got you.
yes. But as far as like today's comedians, I don't really get into like the GOAT conversation, who's the greatest, and I'm
Yeah.
not a person who studies the greats and all that. So
Yeah.
like my favorite comedians are people that I can call, people that I'm on shows with,
Yeah.
people D'Lo out of Baltimore,
I had her
funny
on the
as
show. D'Lo's great. I
love
love D'Lo.
D'Lo. There's a woman named Ashley Mayo out of DC. You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
know. We
So
mentioned the Gwyn factor. Gwyn, because
the
Gwyn,
Gwen factor. I was with her this past
I
weekend.
know. She told me all about it.
Yep. So like the people that that I really know, the
Yeah,
people that show me love, the people that book me, people that I book,
absolutely.
those are my
What about
favorite
Patrice
comedians.
DeVoe? What do you think about her?
Goes without mentioning. Patrice and I actually
Well, you
went to the
almost didn't mention her for shit's sake. I
well
had to
we
do it.
well we did it already at the top. See, now I'm
What's
doing
that?
your job. We did it at the top. We talked about Patrice a little bit at the top, but
Yeah, I'm not sure from last night. Is what day is it? I'm not sure
it's
what
fine.
day.
It doesn't matter. But since you brought up my people, let me tell you something. Patrice not only is a dear friend, she
Yeah.
and I actually went to the same middle school too. She doesn't remember me from there because I'm a little bit older than
Okay.
her. But Patrice is very instrumental to my success. Me and Patrice actually both went to Benford Model Middle School. Go
Okay.
Lions! She doesn't remember that because I'm a little older than she is.
Okay.
But Patrice produced the Bob Sumner Back to Basics comedy showcase where he discovered me,
And
and
there's
it was it,
another
it was a
another another one, Anthony Oakes, I believe, too, right?
yeah, and we're all great friends. He was very
Anthony's a
close
great
to Patrice.
Anthony's been on the show as well.
Yes, yes, yes. And I love Patrice so much because when she put me in that showcase, it was a very controversial move because I was so new. And
Okay.
everybody's like, who the fuck is that? Why did she
Right.
get a
Yeah,
spot?
right.
Yeah.
Well, you seem to be, you're causing me problems. I got to be honest, because you're jumping ahead, and I showed you a piece
Sorry.
of. No, no, I'm kidding you. I'm kidding you. No, don't. I just love to play. I got to get you back full screen because I'm gonna. I told you I had one more nugget for you. I have a couple
Okay.
nuggets for you. I
Okay.
showed you this piece of paper. That's all the stuff I wrote down, and I still have a few more things. But in your case, because of last night, I made a separate thing here, and you mentioned Bob Sumner, and Bob is the reason that this came together
Yes.
because Bob's interview comes up tonight. It premieres tonight. Now we're recording this. It'll be in a couple weeks down the road. Bob and I recorded a couple weeks ago. But there's an interview you probably saw, or I know because you posted on Facebook, where
hmm
Bob described you. And do you know what? Remember what he said?
I'm a smoker.
He said, "She's a smoker, smoker." Okay. Now on the interview tonight, he described you again, and I don't know if you've heard this. He said you're a combination of Cheryl Underwood, Adele Givens, and the marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
You
How's
know,
that? Have you heard that before? Did he ever say that to you?
he has not said that to me. I have heard the Mrs. Maisel
You have
comparison.
to watch the interview tonight because I swear that's what I wrote it down at the special. He said you're a combination
Thank
Cheryl
you for
Underwood,
that.
Adele Givens, and marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I wanted
That
to pull
made my
that
day.
out because it's. And I actually watched Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Have you ever seen
I
it?
did too. Yes, I've
Yes,
seen it.
I
I've seen it a
enjoyed that
couple
show.
times.
I enjoyed that show a lot.
I really did. I really appreciated how they made it so seamless because a lot of like period pieces act like black people just didn't exist at the time. But
Yeah.
Mrs. Maisel just had people just being there, just because it was New
Well, she
York.
lost the
But
gig because she sold out the. Well, she'd give it away her guy.
oh well, yeah, well, I mean, everybody, if you haven't seen Mrs. Maisel, you should watch it. But I really did enjoy that show.
Yeah, me too. Favorite show that you've done so far? Well, here I missed one because I have it written down. We'll get to that. But you've
Mhm.
performed all over. You a lot in D.C., all over the place. Do you have a favorite place to play?
Like favorite city?
Yeah, wherever. I mean, in other words, just because the
Oh
follow up
man.
questions are the follow up questions are going to be favorite show, least favorite show.
Um, my favorite city to perform in, forgive me, y'all, but it's probably DC. It's probably
Yeah, the
DC.
district, sure.
DC just showed me so much love when I was so new. You
Okay.
know, um, my talent got me far in DC. Like, everything people talk about, oh, it's just political, who you know, but everything is who you know. You can't cry about that. But the kind of crowds that DC gives me, I'm at a DC Improv this weekend. I'm so excited
Okay.
because I feel like DC gets me. DC is a city where everybody comes out to have a good time. It could be 20
That's
degrees, it could be raining. They're coming out, you know what I mean? They're going to support you. They buy your merch, you know.
you
So
said a mouthful there. You said DC gets you
yeah, they do.
because
I feel
if you're
like that.
playing North Carolina, where
North
daddy's
Carolina.
from, you're going to clean it up a little bit.
Well, I pride myself. It's a difference between, I want to read the room and give the people what they came to
Right.
see, right? But I don't want to pander. I don't want to
No, I
become
got
a
you. I
different
got you.
person, but DC, they just make it too easy. You know what I mean? I just
Oh
show up
yeah,
and do
yeah.
what I do. Yeah.
Well, it's different. Like in Philadelphia, I spent like I've been in North Carolina. I never heard the word fix until I went to North Carolina.
Yes,
And they
yes.
kept calling me a Yankee. Where are you from,
Mhm.
boy? I'm from York, Pennsylvania. We use a goddamn Yankee. The Civil
Mhm.
War's over. But
Mhm.
you go to Philadelphia, that's a whole different city. Or that's a whole different dang job. There, you better say fuck every other
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
And I think,
But every city got its own flavor and its own culture, and
right.
I mean, I love being exposed to different crowds. I do.
Okay. And I apologize. I hate when I talk, period. I don't like talking. Favorite city to play, DC. Favorite
Mhm.
show you've done so far, and then the least favorite show where shit didn't go so good.
Um, I can't. It's hard to single out a favorite show. I'll tell you.
You have a couple.
That's
I
really
like you.
hard.
I like you, Apple Brown Betty. Go ahead, do a couple.
Okay. I really enjoyed performing at ABFF last year. That was just
Okay.
a mega milestone in my career.
Good.
Adverse circumstances. It was like the first week of hurricane season. Half the people couldn't make it because their flights were grounded, but the
Okay.
people that came to play, and they loved me. So
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun, and I don't think I have a least favorite show. I appreciate all the shows. I know
Okay.
that's the Miss America answer, but I've never had a show that I was like, man, fuck this shit. You know what I'm saying? I've never That's never happened. Even when it's not every night's gonna be a grand slam. Even when it's not the best show.
Well,
I can't pick
lesson
a least
learned,
favorite.
right? Lesson
Yeah,
learned.
definitely.
Yeah.
Lesson learned, definitely.
Yeah. You are a consummate pro. You're amazing. I just love you. I think you're fantastic. Um,
Thank you.
you started, and it's part of the game now. Bob. I posted a thing last night about Bob and social media and stuff. But I noticed, and you did a prayer the other day, which I just loved. And you're doing some social media stuff. Do you enjoy doing that?
Um,
When I say that, in other
do
words, Instagram Reels, and I don't know if you're on TikTok. I'm going to include all the links to all your channel. If you have YouTube, whatever you have, your Facebook, your Instagram. If you have
Thank you.
TikTok, do you enjoy doing those?
I was doing that way before I started on stages and stand up. So like I had a social media presence. Now the page that you see now, I intentionally started that when I became a stand up comedian, and I
Okay.
only friended other comedians and producers. I wanted to be intentional about that, and it grew with people that came to the shows and things like that. But I've been a social media presence probably since 2009. I
Yeah.
talk a lot, so I post a lot.
Yeah.
I was
No, I
always
love it.
most.
I love it.
Thank you. And social media for me, that's how I'm of service. Like there's a disconnect sometimes between the people who watch you on social media and the people who
Right.
come to your shows,
Come to your
because
show.
like I don't have those numbers. Like if I had 200,000 followers, it would equate to tickets. So I don't have that yet. I'm not there yet. But that's okay because I really do see my social media as a way for me to uplift,
Absolutely.
inspire, entertain people. And it's a different kind of love. Like people
Well, but
inbox
I
me.
don't. Let me ask you though. Don't you think that helps? There are people that'll watch that and hey, she's coming to Richmond, or she's going to be. Well, let's go see her.
Oh,
I think it helps.
definitely.
At
It
least my opinion.
just in right at this point, it happens in smaller numbers. It's not happening on a grand scale. But my point is that that's okay because that wasn't my goal. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
that's why you did this show. You're gonna hope to get one more.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can guarantee one more fan.
That's right. And honestly, growing organically is very,
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
We mentioned Bob Sumner, but I want to make sure that we pay homage to that guy because I know he's in your corner now. And I think when you said earlier about comedy and going forward that way, I think he doesn't put his name on just anything. He told me in the interview tonight he saw 600 comics, and right now he's working with like 7. So I think you're in
Right.
great
Yes.
hands.
Yes.
You're in great
I
hands.
am. I'm in the
Yeah.
best hands. Yes.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we want to talk about before I let you go? I do want to
Um,
thank you. And do you have your comedy minute special, little something you can do for me? Maybe a little bit, a little skit.
um, it'd probably be more of a PSA.
That's whatever you want it to be.
Okay, cool.
I think you do a bit about men. Oh, now your bandwidth's slow, but hopefully it'll come back. We're losing bandwidth. It says keeps dropping you down. There you
Uh-oh.
go. That's all right. Well, look, why don't you do it? I'll do a formal introduction and I'll try and piece it together what we got. Okay.
Okay.
Apple Brown Betty, your comedy minute. Go ahead, my friend.
So my comedy minute is going to be more of a commentary. I
Okay.
want to just champion women who do blue, navy blue, royal blue humor. Hey, ladies, I love y'all. I think a lot of times when I do these kind of interviews and conversations, because I have such a dynamic repertoire of subjects that I talk about, a lot
Right.
of times people will ask me about women who do blue humor, and I don't like when people try to uplift me by putting the next woman down. Let's not do that. And I think something that's overlooked a lot in comedy with women and their reputation for focusing on sex and sexual topics and things like that. We all have this understanding in comedy that comedians talk about their trauma on stage, but nobody seems to make that connection to the fact that women talk about sex because that's where our trauma lies. So even though I do lots of different things, I do a lot of political humor. I talk about parenting. I talk about, religion, race, all the hot button issues. But that doesn't mean that I'm a more elevated or more educated or anything than the next female comedian. I'm real big on that. So I stand with all my sisters. Dick jokes, dick jokes. We want to hear those too. They have their place. And if anything, the next time you think a woman is a little too blue, a little too raunchy, a little too raw, maybe talk to some of the bitches around you, the ones you're not trying to fuck. It might make a little more sense. So,
But anyone that tries to like pigeonhole you and say you're this or you're that,
mhm.
just tell them I'm a combination of Cheryl Underwood, Adele Givens, and Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. You
And the
kiss
marvelous Mrs.
you
Maisel.
kiss my entire ass, Betty. I would tell you to kiss my ass, but you probably couldn't find it, you blind motherfucker. Fuck you, bitch. Little Harlem Nights
Thanks
for you.
for that. Yeah,
No,
I'll keep that one.
again, it's a comedy show, and I try and make light of things. But
Yeah,
I cannot thank you enough for your patience and giving me your time. And
of
uh,
course.
I'll tell you what, I say this, I say it all the time, but I rarely mean it. I want you to come back. If you had a
Oh,
good time,
anytime.
if you enjoyed yourself, come back in a few months and hopefully everything will work properly.
It will. We ironed out all the
No, well, I
kinks this
think we did.
time.
I think that voodoo you put on my shit last night.
Hoodoo, not voodoo. Big difference.
What is it?
Hoodoo and voodoo are two totally different
Hey,
things.
I worked with a guy named Webb Wilder. He has a song called Hoodoo Witch.
Yeah, I know her.
Hoodoo Witch. Witch. Hoodoo Witch. Hey, thank you from bottom of my heart. And I wish you nothing but the best. I'll let you go.
I appreciate you. You be blessed.